So this is one heck of a story. On March 31st, 2019, Nipsey Hussle was murdered. It was the same week that Muslims specifically in the country of Oman, were celebrating Prophet Muhammad's ascension to heaven. It was an Eid celebration that same week. So in America, we were closing the month of March, but in the Middle East, specifically in Oman, they were celebrating a religious holiday. The idea that Nipsey's murder, Nipsey's death coincided in the same week as was celebrated Muhammad's ascension to heaven is another interesting coincidence connected with the timing of Nipsey's death. Another interesting connection or another interesting coincidence is the fact that Nipsey was murdered at the age of 33. Already bells were, sent ringing because Jesus died at the age of 33. That's that biblical number. It was 7 days after Nipsey's murder that I had an experience in the desert of Oman, whereby I walked out of my home one morning. I looked into the sky and I saw what appeared to be two lines in the sky. And those two lines formed what to me looked like a cross. Of course, a different interpretation may be a plus sign or an X. However you think, whatever you think of those two lines, whether they're a plus sign, an X, or a cross, as in my case, how I can explain their creation, their presence on that particular day is a complete mystery. And the reason I say that is because although I lived in that particular home, in that city of that country for nearly 7 months, I arrived late January and I left in July. I did not see airplanes flying overhead for essentially six or 7 months. I did not see airplanes flying overhead, because to me those lines could only have been made by airplanes. Well, if you don't see airplanes flying overhead, how could those lines have been made? And then on that particular day, exactly 7 days after Nipsey's murder, so all of these questions were raised, like, what is the significance of the number 7? Where did these lines come from? Why am I seeing these lines? All of these questions, came to mind. Now, at that time, I was working on this book. I was thinking of a theme, or I was thinking of a story to tell to bring all of these isolated incidences together. These isolated incidences I'm referring to are moments when I would see the numbers 1, 0, and 9, or 10, 9. For instance, I may board a train and my seat assignment would be in row 10. I may drive down the street and see a license plate that reads, 10-9, and then whatever other numbers or letters that would follow. Or I would wake up at 10:09 a.m. or p.m. or 1:09 a.m. or p.m. And so these numbers were constantly demanding my attention, and I found myself finding these numbers in very odd circumstances, and many times when I was stressed, I found and if I found these numbers in those moments, I found that these numbers helped me, help that stress alleviate. Because in my mind, I imagined that these numbers were signs from the universe or signs from God. And so anytime I saw these numbers, initially I thought these numbers were just neat coincidences whereby I was witnessing, or I was encountering my birthday. Oh, that's cool. Those are my that's my birth date. Those are my numbers. 10 for October and 9 for the 9th day. But as the incidents, the number of occurrences, the iterations of these same instances, continued and increased, they really didn't increase. It wasn't like in one day I would see 10-9, and then see it again and then see it again. No, there were these particular moments that I would find myself, thinking about, meditating on. And so I might take a picture, and that would help me remember that moment. Well, over a number of years, you can imagine taking pictures and collecting these moments. You collect a long list or a long string of these moments. And essentially that's what I was doing. And well, although I had a collection of these moments to talk about, I really didn't have that single thread to connect all of these isolated incidences until, sadly, unfortunately, until Nipsey's murder. Because it was then that not only did I encounter these numbers, I saw these numbers on the day that Nipsey was murdered. I was driving to work, a car cut me off, and I saw the license plate, and it was 1090. That was the license plate in Oman. So again, I had one of those moments where I was like, the universe is speaking to you. God is speaking to you. And so I let that wash over me, and I let that calm me down, that pain alleviated, because in that moment, I knew about Nipsey's murder, and I was sad, angry, and I felt displaced because I was thousands of miles away from my home in Los Angeles. And so, but it was also on that day, March 31st, 2019, that I had a way of telling my story, of connecting the dots, of putting all of these strings of isolated incidences together. And the only conclusion I could come up with was Nipsey was the closest that I have come to seeing, like the second coming of Jesus. So essentially, Nipsey was the closest thing to Jesus, is what I was, is the conclusion. It is the premise of this book. I share many instances, but that's the premise, that's the theme, that is the line that links all of those isolated incidences. And the reason is because, or I believe that I was being prepared to interpret, Nipsey and Nipsey's life and legacy to the world. And I say that because I think, now this may not be true, because if you're watching this, you may be saying, well, that's not true because, you know, I saw him differently, right? I felt as if it was my job and my duty to demonstrate, to show, to explain that, to show and prove that Nipsey was far greater, far more than just, the Rolling 60s, this Rolling 60s gang member. Because from my travels throughout Ethiopia, where in fact, I did see these numbers, I learned that there was a whole empire, the Aksumite Empire, way before, many other empires. And essentially, Nipsey was a descendant of that empire. And so, for a man to rise like Nipsey did, to rise from a lowly station in life to, the highest, think about everything that he accomplished in his life. Um, for him to rise to that level took a great spirit, a great man of character, a man of dedication. Um, it took, almost a superhuman person, a deity. And so, if there's anything to explain why it was Nipsey, it's because of his lineage, his heritage. Where did he come from? Who was he? Maybe he was the reincarnation of a king from that ancient time. So this book is really, unlocks a lot of questions. Who was Nipsey really? How was this man able to accomplish so much and touch so many people's hearts? How was he able to do it? And my answer is he was able to do it because, just like his name, Ermias, meant God will rise, God played a huge role in his life. And that's just, that's what this book is about, and that's what I saw. But of course, you saw it too. You knew. People have always, if you watch the videos on YouTube about the people who traveled to Crenshaw and Slauson, a lot of people, if not all of the people, will tell you that there was a sense, there was an energy, there was a feeling. You could feel it. It was palpable. When you went there after Nipsey's murder, there was a sense, there was an energy there at Crenshaw and Slauson, or perhaps around the entire city, but that energy was there. Very strong energy. And so, yeah, people could feel it. People knew it. And for the people who were like him, of the Eritrean community, um, they know. They know the complexity of life in America, because these people are descendants of this empire, the Aksumite Empire. And they are trying to negotiate their lives in America with the ideal that they have of themselves and their, and the ideas that they are confronted with in America. And so it's a dance. It's a dance that, these people and all people have to play. Um, but that's what, 109 is about. I hope I was able to explain things sufficiently. But it's an amazing journey, and I capture it in my poem because, You know, I was moved. I was moved to write about what Nipsey meant to me, and after the many things that I had learned, you know, through my travels around the world, um, and I put it in the form of a poem, and that's what 109 is. It's the story of my travels and what Nipsey means to me, and all of these moments where 109, where I encountered those numbers. But it's also a book that houses a poem, a single poem, similar to the Iliad. It's an epic poem. It's a long poem. It's not as long as the Iliad, of course, but it's a long poem. That's 109. Peace.